Ay, ay, ay. In this video, I'm going to reveal the #1 reason why most people who start the low FODMAP diet end up failing. They don't get the result that they should have, the result that they deserve. And this is a fundamental thing that you need to understand when you're cutting FODMAPs from your diet. So make sure you stick around to watch this. Now, I will give you a little clue. Can you figure out what it might be about? First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Joe Leach. I'm a dietitian. I create lots of content around gut health, irritable bowel syndrome, low FODMAP diet, things of that nature. My website is dietversusdisease.org. If you want more information about this or anything, you can type in the search bar there and find it there. Anyway, could you guess what the #1 reason is that people fail at this diet? If you said that it was because they give into food cravings and go off the wagon, then you might be right as well. But the thing that I'm talking about today is called FODMAP stacking. You may or may not have heard of it. I hope you have heard of it because it's super important. So as you know, portion sizes are very important when we're talking about low FODMAP and high FODMAP foods, and so is stacking. So what does it mean? Stacking can apply to any foods, not just FODMAP, high FODMAP foods. So for example, there are many compounds, food compounds that people can tolerate to a certain amount, and once they exceed that amount, they get symptoms. So for example, high fat foods. Some people, if they go and eat a greasy fish and chips meal, they get tummy problems, whereas someone else won't. If they drink lots of alcohol, might get tummy problems. Most people can tolerate a little bit of chili, and once they go too far, then you get problems later on. The same even with caffeine. And the reason is because people have what's called a different threshold to that food compound. And it's different for different people. Some people's threshold for me, for example, for caffeine, my threshold is all the way down here. And I've got some friends who can, scull a liter of caffeine before they go to bed, and they'll be asleep in 2 minutes. So their threshold is way up here. The point is, it's the same with FODMAP. So if you are really sensitive to a FODMAP, you need to be careful of how often you are having it. So let's have a look here. So on the left here, I've written dose. In terms of FODMAPs, this is kind of like the amount of FODMAPs you have, or the FODMAP load. Down the bottom here is the frequency that you're having it, or the time that's passed. This is the makeshift threshold line. So anything exceeding this threshold is symptoms. And below here is symptom-free. So we're happy down here. Now, a lot of people will eat a food that's low FODMAP at a particular amount or dose or serving size. And then they're fine, they don't get symptoms. But then they continually eat that at every meal or even in between meals. And then the next day they get symptoms and they're trying to figure out what it is and they can't. And it's typically because of FODMAP stacking. So let's do an example. If we know that two kiwi fruits are low FODMAP. As of the recording of this video, they retest things all the time and change them, but let's say 2 kiwis are no FODMAP. So you have 2 kiwi fruits at breakfast, for example, and this is the spike you get here from the dose. So you're way under the threshold, so you don't get any symptoms. Kiwis have fructan, so in this case it would be this would be your fructan threshold line. Now, you could have 2 kiwis, at lunch as well, or say this was at morning tea, and then you had a time in between where your body was able to start digesting that and processing that, so it came down, then you had 2 more. And then in afternoon tea, you had another one, for example. Then all of a sudden, we've come up a bit because we had less time, your body had less time to process that. It's the same, just think about it, with coffee or with chili or greasy foods, or even with alcohol, it's the same. Now, if you were then to have, again, 2 kiwi fruits at dinner, for example, then all of a sudden your body didn't have enough time to process that, and boom. Now all of a sudden, you've been eating, you've only been having 2 kiwi fruits at each serving, that's low FODMAP. But you actually ended up eating, say, for example, 8 kiwi fruits today, and all of a sudden, you're going to start getting symptoms. That just reminded me that this happens sometimes when I eat watermelon. You buy a small watermelon and then you decide, well, it's only small, I'll just eat half, and half of watermelon ends up being loads. And normally I'm pretty okay with watermelon, but if I eat half a watermelon, this is what's happening, and you know what's going to happen later. So that's something to be mindful of. You want to space things out, okay? So if you're going to eat 2 kiwi fruits at breakfast, yeah, that's low FODMAP. If you're going to eat them at lunch as well, okay, yeah, they do have, remember, fructans, FODMAPs are in plant-based foods, so they're in all plant-based foods basically. So they're not no FODMAP foods, they're low FODMAP foods. So if you stack them up, hence FODMAP stacking, eventually they're going to stack up higher than your threshold. Something to keep in mind. So you can have 2 kiwis at breakfast, but maybe if you're going to have them for dessert after dinner, you might want to eat them during the day. That way, you've got a chance for this to come back down to baseline. And look, I know that. Can you hear that music outside? I don't know if you can hear music, but there's like a concert playing outside on the day that I wanted to record this video, and like a festival, and they never have that. Like, this is like the only day of the year. Of course, it has to be on the day that I'm talking. Anyway, I know there's a lot of variables here that I've been talking about. It's not black and white. It depends on what FODMAP we're talking about. It depends on the person. It depends on what food you've been having. And I'll leave you with this thought, because as humans, we want to have a blueprint of exactly what to do and where we're going. We like certainties, but with the low FODMAP diet, you have to embrace that there is a bit of variation. When it comes to gut health and sensitive tummies, there is no set way. Different people respond differently to different things. So if you want to move forward with this, you have to kind of embrace the uncertainty, and that's the only way to move forward. So look, if you've got questions, you can ask me in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to them. Let me know if you found it useful. If you know anyone who would find this interesting or useful, I'd really appreciate it if you share it, or if you tag them in the comments even. That would be amazing. Thank you for watching.